Hello everybody, Jazzy here. Welcome to year 5 of Merm on the Moon, a solo Wurt series. This run has existed almost exclusively in the beta branch of Don't Starve Together, and as of this year we are still in the Terrors Below update, which added the cave rifts. Early autumn, I'm finally finishing up my centerpiece build for the chest zone. Like I said last time, I wanted this nautically themed mini garden vibe, and the parts of this that I'm the most proud of are the astral detectors in the corners and the dual mannequins decked out with bandanas and summer frests. But now I'm trying to finish up the chest zone, and I need some more scales for the chests. After the embarrassment of a dragonfly fight last summer, I decided to treat myself to some duplicating scales. Now you do this by using a scale to craft scaled flooring, then you use a green staff to deconstruct each piece for more scales. Scale duping actually got nerfed during the update, which made most turf recipes give 4 pieces. Before that update, you got 6 scaled flooring from 1 turf, so it was slightly cheaper to deconstruct. Really just a difference of how many scales you need to feed back into the system to keep duping. So because of that, I try farming directly from D-Fly as often as possible, but at this point I just wanted a few more scales, and this is why we clear the ruins. Day 290 marks the completion of my first major build, and it will be a central hub for the entire base moving forward. It should be enough storage for all my non-turf items, but if I need more, there's plenty of space for more chests. And that was all the time I had with Wurt in the Terrors Below beta. The next time I opened this save was for the Host of Horrors beta, which came out last September. Now this update added the 3 new mutant bosses to the game, and with all the new Lunar Forge items that are now available, it's finally time to activate the Lunar Rifts. It's also time to retire this world from hardcore. Moving forward, I want the chance to revive if something untoward happens, so I'm changing the death reset timer from instant to default. It's still a survival world, so I'll always carry around a life-giving amulet, and I'll keep building effigies. First matter of business is to fire up the moonstorms and fight another celestial champion. As much as I enjoy DST sailing mechanics, I'm going to build a bridge to Lunar Island. I've always been able to do this. The ocean between Lunar and the mainland always appears to be shallow, so it's all fair game for docks. Since I've already done a Celestial Champion and refused to give Wagstaff a shard, I could also look for him on the mainland to start the rifts, but I'm wearing the crown and using the extra shard for a glow cap, and since I'm gonna want more shards anyway, I might as well do the fight again. Also, I plan to step up my farming soon, so in preparation for that, I'm going to make a seed packet. It's cheap to craft, and it basically slows spoilage of seeds like an icebox, but with more space. Crop seeds will last over a year in the pack, so as long as we replant once a year for fresh seeds, we could store them here year-round. Because Wurt's been farming up a lot of bananas, I'm going to start making banana daiquiri for healing. 1 banana, 1 ice, and no twigs. I prefer it over banana pop because of the spoilage, and until we get Dragon Pie, it'll be a nice, quick health food for boss fights. I'm fighting my second Celestial Champ with my Ornery Beefalo, decked out with a war saddle. I tried Merms for the first fight, but barely any of them made it to the second phase, and it doesn't really seem worth the extra DPS just for phase 1. This fight will still go much quicker than the first because of the extra damage from the Enlightened Crown. By the final phase, you are constantly maxed out on lunacy, so there's no real reason not to take advantage of that. I did have one scary moment in phase 3 when it summoned Gestalts. I'm used to looking for the blue flames in a circle around the boss, but because of the maxed out lunacy and full moon, I couldn't really tell any colors until it was almost too late. I should have been paying attention to the Gestalts swirling around the boss right before the attack. And this could have been really bad if I had fallen asleep right next to the boss, because a double laser attack to my Beefalo could have killed it even if it wasn't already in the red. I also didn't appreciate the charged salamander setting me on fire while I'm trying to kill the thing that's threatening it. It's really tough keeping the salamanders out of this fight just because of all the AoE and charge attacks that cover a lot of terrain. Even still, fighting the boss right next to a dwarf star was probably not going to be helpful. But eventually the boss went down, and I'm finally delivering the shard to Mr. Chaotic Neutral himself. There is no going back. From here on out, we will be dealing with rifts, deadly bright shades, and lunar hail until the day I get angry and delete the save. So fingers crossed we get better ways to mitigate bright shades this year. I snuck in a class fight as long as it was winter, and I got a shroom skin, which is honestly the only drop I care about at this point besides the wax paper. I have yet to kill Misery Toad, so every shroom skin I can get at this point will be greatly appreciated. After moonstorms, I usually try to make it over to Moon Key Island to feed any extra moon gleams to the portal, which forces it into overdrive and spits out a bunch of portal resources. This will be useful for accumulating banana bushes, which will be a staple of Wurt's diet, plus palm cone seeds, which I consider the absolute best tree to farm for wood. I just need to give the queen an occasional banana as I kill the powder monkeys, so I don't monkey myself all over again. Day 311, we get our first lunar hail. I don't have an umbrella yet, so I'm just running around to avoid damage. Thankfully, the frequency of hail got tuned down considerably by the end of the beta, so this shouldn't be a major inconvenience for too long. I did read on the wiki that standing under any tree protects you from hail damage, but can someone please confirm this? Because I feel like I've stood under an evergreen like a sitting duck and still got pummeled by hail. The first of the mutants I'll be able to fight is the possessed Varg. So back on the mainland, I'm hunting for one, and on day 312, I finally find one. I'm going to lead it to a secluded spot near my base until I'm ready to fight the lunar version. Now I'm heading back to the caves for some final preparations before the first rift opens. And here I get yet another opportunity to teach you to do as I say, not as I do. Please do not ever swap beefalo saddles next to the void. It is painfully easy for a saddle to plop into the void, and I've absolutely lost Glossamer saddles this way before. I'm just trying to save you more than a small helping of pain and regret. Back in the ruins, I'm trying to craft a shadow plinth kit, slowly realizing that I can't do that at a broken station. I'm not sure why I didn't just upgrade the station instead of running headfirst into the completed station set piece and knocking the bishops down as fast as I can. Still need to wear armor because they love beefalo and would never dream of shooting one in the face. And that's fine by me, because I got plenty of armor. So now I got the plinth kit, and before I leave, I'm going to deconstruct and remake my pickaxe so that I can mine the pure brilliance from the rifts. Merms will help too, but I could also use the pickaxe for future nightmare pig fights. Although, I probably won't be using this once we make a bright shade smasher. I'm also leaving the ruins with a few green amulets, some staves, and 3 brand new star staves. I had actually spotted the rift as it was opening, so we'll make our first trip over to grab some pure brilliance. And we can come back later after the rift opens up all the way and get some more. But if we get a few pieces now, we can craft at the Bright Smithy as soon as we get our first deadly bright shade wave. After a quick trip to Lunar Island to pick up some moon glass, now I'm able to craft the Bright Smithy from the Celestial Orb, and now we can sit back and wait for the rift to open all the way and get us some bright shades. Day 319, Wurt is raiding her first abandoned junk. This set piece spawns occasionally in the world after the rifts begin. You can find it by following Wagstaff whenever he appears near a player and runs off in a certain direction. Each of these structures will drop scrap and has a 40% chance of dropping a blueprint for Warbus gear. I'm glad we got an extra crown, because the armor requires a shard to craft. I don't see myself using this gear too much, but you never know. It might be a useful alternative to beefalo speed, especially if I'm fighting anything that could potentially knock me off the beefalo. While it's spring, I'm finally going to set up some farm plots and get some seeds planted. I'm mainly looking for dragon fruit because dragon pie is probably the best crockpot food for Wurt. I haven't prioritized cooking too much in this run because Wurt's hunger is so easy to manage with kelp and stone fruit, but once we get a polar bear gerbin, I'm gonna try transitioning to crockpot dishes and retiring the food bundle. Day 322, we get our first bright shade herd, spawned in some transplanted crops I left in the swamp. Now, I'm trying to use merms to kill them, and I know from experience, this is totally doable if you do it right. It works for exactly 1 stun period, but when the bright shade retaliates with thorns, all the merms will aggro onto it and the thorns will massacre them all. If Wurt is helping, you can usually get this done in a single stun. It didn't work out this time, but it was just enough firepower to kill 1 bright shade, and anyone who lives with rifts on will tell you that 2 bright shades are so much more manageable than 3. I don't have much in the way of planar protection, but I can wear dreadstone armor for a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that aside from character-specific skills, The Dreadstone armor is the only planar defense you can access before activating the rifts. At this point, I have enough materials to make the Brightshade helm, the sword, and one repair kit. And this is gonna make fighting the next round of Brightshades a lot easier, and I plan to use the sword as my primary weapon from now on. Even though it does more damage than a dark sword when paired with the helm, especially versus planar mobs, to me the biggest benefit of the Brightshade sword is that it's so economical. It has 200 uses and can be repaired fully with one kit. So I find it much less annoying to maintain versus a dark sword. It's not quite as strong as a maxed out Reaper, but personally I prefer the consistent damage, and I won't need to be constantly fighting ink blights to fix the Reaper. A few days later, we get more Brightshades back at the swamp. I will, again, happily trade the deaths of numerous Merm guards in exchange for one Brightshade kill. It's amazing how one of these plants is deadlier to a horde of Merms than the vast majority of bosses in the game. The Brightshade sword plus helm does much better versus mobs with planar entity protection. A dark sword will deal 41 damage, but the Brightshade sword plus helm deals 63 damage to Brightshades. So taking them out is much easier already. And now it's time for our first lunar mutant boss, the possessed Varg. Ugh. First we gotta kill the Varg, so the Merms will hit it while I deal with the hounds. And now it's time for the real pain. This guy will summon hounds that will turn undead after being killed. Again, I'll let the Merms work on the Varg while I kite the dogs around. I tried to get the stun during the flame attack, but an ice hound got in the way. Not a huge deal, except then Wurt got frozen by another ice hound and watched helplessly as the Varg dropped some napalm breath right on Wurt. Even with the combo of Brightshade helm and Dreadstone armor, which is like 90% damage reduction and 15 planar defense, this dude sprays me 3 times with the breath for a total of 43 damage. Fortunately, the Merms were able to finish him off before the next breath, but man, I really don't want to fight this boss again. I will fight this boss again. Now, right before this beta update, we got the crossover event with Cult of the Lamb, which added a couple of new turfs. And you get these turfs by gifting Antlion one of these red crowns that you can fish up at the Oasis Lake. It's kind of a weird delivery system for turf blueprints, especially since Antlion already drops 2 blueprints. Like, at this point, it's a race between Antlion and Nightmare Pig to see who can be the first to eventually become composed entirely of papyrus. But I do as the game bids, as always, especially since the brick flooring will be a nice alternative to cobblestones for certain builds. I killed Antlion, but I totally forgot that the Brightshade helm works as goggles in the sandstorm. Honestly, the sword and helm is a perfect combo for fighting Antlion because the helm combines goggles with armor, so you have a free body slot to throw on whatever else you want to use, like a Warbus suit. I look forward to finally wearing bone armor for this fight next year. A moment of silence for the crust of shines I dropped in the centerpiece build. Unfortunate collateral damage of the deadly beta Lunar Hail. Now, Lunar Hail did get changed after the beta to only affect players, but they will likely restore damage to mobs once they develop more on sheltering mechanics. I'm actually quite excited to see what they come up with. Maybe we'll get to try it on this world in the next beta. At this point, I'm ready to fight Fuel Weaver and open up the Shadow Rifts. So while I'm waiting on a Shadow Piece fight, I'm sneaking in a Nightmare Werepig fight because I will need 5 Dreadstone to activate the rifts. With the Brightshade Sword and Helm combo, I'm doing a whopping 84 damage versus shadow-aligned mobs. Eventually, I'd love to also wear a Void Robe and negate all the sanity loss. But the Brightshade Sword is, without a doubt, my second favorite item to emerge from the Rift content. Can you guess the item in the number 1 spot? Now I'm back upstairs and finally getting Brightshades at the Oasis base. I had to basically dig up all the other crops in the world that I had transplanted, but that seems to have done the job. Honestly, it's a bit cringe watching me fight Brightshades from 3 months ago. Let's just say, I've had plenty of opportunities to refine my technique ever since. The Brightshade staff can be your best friend when it comes to taking out groups of Brightshades. If you run around while targeting the plants and not the vines, you can usually kill all 3 plants with like 150% of a staff. There's ways to save on staff durability, but Wurt had yet to learn all of the intricacies of this activity, which has since become a perpetual staple of my late game experience. I need to issue a correction for when I said that kelp is immune to wildfires. They are not immune. Kelp are safe to farm from the Oasis. As long as you're on land, the kelp won't catch a wildfire, and will still grow in summer, so yet another reason for Wurt to love kelp. But I don't know where I got it in my head that kelp is waterproof. Maybe I was having a single player moment, mistaking it for seaweed from Shipwrecked. I don't really know. Now it's almost time for shadow pieces, but I have a little time left for a trip to the Rift. I find that if you're gonna make only one trip for pure brilliance, you should do it a couple days after the Rift opens fully. If you head over as soon as the sky flashes, it seems to be about half of its maximum size. But here I'm catching it at its absolute peak, and there's like half a stack of brilliance to mine out. I'm spotting some random bright shade herds out in the wild. If you haven't transplanted a lot of crops, then they will start going for wild plants. I did expect this because I haven't really made any place to catch the herds other than my grass at base, so if that gets infested, then the next waves will go somewhere random. Day 345, I'm fighting the shadow pieces with my beefalo. I have so many better options for killing them at this point, like bright shade gear or merms. I guess I was looking to mix things up and keep trying these boss fights differently, so I will do the traditional order of knight, bishop, then rook, and kite the tier 3 rook with an ornery beefalo with a gossamer saddle. The biggest benefit is that, assuming your beefalo lives, the fight costs you nothing. Otherwise, it costs you everything. It just takes a bit longer than other methods. I should really use bright shade gear next time. And then it is time for our second mutant boss. Berger! Why did you do this, Clay? I have Berger Protection Agency as a Twitch emote. I have made so many videos saying to keep Berger alive, and I have a vested, emotional, and admittedly economic interest in keeping this giant teddy bear in my life. The best wood farmer in the game just became a gatekeeper for spark arcs. I have to kill him. Otherwise, no polar bin, no howitzer, no crystallizer. It really sucks. I hope that we get more mutants that qualify for spark arcs because this breaks my heart. Anyway, someone suggested that I kill him in summer so that he respawns during autumn. I can't confirm that this actually works. I thought that Berger's timer was based on autumn days. But in retrospect, it doesn't really matter. I need to kill all 3 mutant bosses before I get a spark arc. So until I kill Deerclops, it doesn't really matter if Berger spawns this year or the next. Berger's swipe is much wider now, so kiting away from him is trickier. Instead, you want to run around him to dodge the swipe. Just back off for the ground pound, and this boss is still fairly straightforward. And now it's time for Armored Berger. Now, this fight went through a few changes during the beta, but at this time, Berger would sit back basically every time you ran around him. So the workflow was simple. Dodge his swipe, get out of the way of the deadly backseating, and then stun him with the planar weapon. I could also have used the Bright Shade staff to stun, but I didn't know it at the time. Something watching yourself play the game 3 months later. So now we've killed 2 out of the 3. Just need to wait for Clops in winter, and we can get our first spark arc. Okay, we need to talk about banana dishes again, because these recipes alone can easily manage Wurt's stats. You can make banana shake for sanity, and banana daiquiri for healing. Both have a 15-day spoilage, and as long as I stock up on ice, I can make both dishes from kelp and bananas. Eventually, when I get my polar Berger bin, kelp will be used mostly as a crockpot filler for both of these dishes. And Dragon Pie. And on the final day of the year, I'm fighting Ancient Guardian for the key. I haven't even cleared the ruins. I'm just itching to open the rifts. I don't actually need to kill Fuel Weaver again to open the rifts, but it seems a shame to waste an opportunity to reset the ruins, which haven't been cleared yet. Okay, I've now decided that my actual reason was to get another Thurb Bull. Yeah, we're gonna go with that one. And that's it for year 5. Next time we will fight the last mutant boss and get our first spark arc, craft the first of the new lunar forge items, kill some ink blights, and then clear the ruins properly with rift gear. Hope you're enjoying the series, and Happy New Year! See you soon.